I'm Mike Hogan from Filmmaker. This is Chloe Lazat, the content director at Filmmaker. We've got Ted Hope here and Courtney Romano. We're so excited to be chatting with you guys. And as the fact that we didn't know you could only have three people on a Substack Live does suggest, we're a little new to the platform. We've been experimenting a lot, having fun with it. But you guys are really, one of the reasons we were excited about joining the platform with Filmmaker. And obviously, Ted, your relationship with Filmmaker goes way back.
My
Uh,
very first post, 1995.
should we just start there? Do you want to tell us about that? Let's hear it.
Well, actually, the first first editor of Filmmaker magazine happened before it was called Filmmaker magazine. Happened to be my business partner, James Seamus, and he did, I think, one issue, and then appointed Scott McCauley to come in, who basically then ran it for life, next 33 years. We were super fortunate, right? I moved to New York City in the 80s. Right. My first year in New York was the year of She's Gotta Have It, Stranger Than Paradise, Blood Simple, Smithereens. People were doing really cool movies. And it felt like, you know what? It's just like punk rock. Pick up a guitar. You don't have to be able to sing, just play and scream loud. And it took us a little while to find the way and to find all of each other, but eventually all of us found each other. There were lots of folks doing what we were doing at Good Machine. Movies were getting made. People were taking chances. Gatekeepers seemed to be banished from the kingdom. And, hell was breaking loose in the best possible way. And despite those times, somehow I would still get depressed about the state of the world and the questions of possibility. And, maybe call me a grievance keeper or what, but I build lists. And I was like, what's wrong with this place? How could we actually make it better? And I started, trying to track what those were. And it led to an article called Indie Film is Dead, that Scott McCauley, in his wisdom, recognized there's something wrong with this perspective, Ted. Maybe James would like to write the opposite piece. And so he did a kind of double truck publishing of us, business partners and friends, Seamus and I. Indie Film is Dead, long live indie film.
Yeah, Scott told me a version of the story where he called James and was just like, "Hey, your partner in the indie film production company just submitted an article for us saying indie film is dead. Do you want to, by any chance, write, an alternative point of view?" And James was like, "Oh, I better get on that." Yeah. So, but it is an amazing piece of filmmaker history. And
Yeah.
but I guess it is interesting that there's
I
some
would just tag
parallels.
that, I always worry about musicians, who have a hit song because then they're living in hell because they have to keep singing that same song, whether they like it or not, for the rest of their careers. By
This
the
is
way,
your
Neil
free
Young.
bird. Indie film is dead is your free bird.
Exactly. I was gonna say Cortez the Killer because
Yeah.
Neil Young just put out a live album, and in it, like, I think he has his definitive version of Cortez the Killer. So sometimes the songs do improve, along the way, 40 years later. But basically, I've been singing that same song for, ever since.
I like that idea a lot. Like the song can sort of change as years pass. And I wonder if you might be able to talk about your recent response to this hit song of yours in the most recent or the winter issue of Filmmaker, because that's a nice way to bring this into the present day too.
My recently Oh, yeah, I do th there are certain notions that I subscribe to, beyond newsletters that I subscribe to, that, shape my behavior, and one of them is that change is incredibly slow until it's really fast, right? And that keeps my hope for film going, because I do believe we're always moving to those verge, ledges, so to speak. And I have to say that having no geek gatekeeper community platform. So I could encounter somebody like Courtney Romano, along the way, amongst many other people, many who are, on this chat right now. Hello, Alan McIntyre. Hello, Taylor Lewis. Folks, Jake Wiseman. You know, folks who I didn't know who had something really important to say. That for a variety of reasons, our system wasn't amplifying, and I knew I could learn from these people, right? And so often in a system, you need the old people to say, like, there are folks who are leading the way right now if you care to listen to them, right? And that's kind of what Substack had to offer. So when, um, Scott McCauley found a, old article that I had faxed him as my follow-up to, Indie Film is Dead in 1995 and '96, and he somehow chose not to play with it and lost it and then found it again. He asked me for his final issue to kind of, what would I do if I wrote that story again? The story was meant as the story I wrote in 1995 and '96 was meant a little bit as a joke. It was how to, conquer the indie film business, and I was, you know, biting my thumb, uh, at particularly Harvey Weinstein and what he was doing at that point in time, and you could see it. But it felt, when I read it and confronted it again when Scott sent it to me, it was a little prescient to what the global streaming platforms, including the one that I helped build, were now doing, right? And how they were squeezing us all out of the 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 realm. And I think what unites the people I mentioned, and Courtney and others, is we actually hold a pretty positive view of possibility, right? And I've experienced in my 40 years in the business and in life that people like to put down people that are optimistic, that actually believe things can get better. Like, it's considered, oh, so, innocent and, gullible. How dare you believe that we can get to a better place? But I really believe we are getting to a better place. And I really believe that the best is yet to come. Like, for all the benefits and, right place, right time, great people to collaborate with back in those early '90s period, you ain't seen nothing yet, right? Like, it's getting better, and I see the evidence because I got to meet Courtney. I
Well,
got
yeah,
to
I
meet
mean, I
Taylor.
think that's
I
a
got to meet Jake. I got to meet Alan. Alan
yeah.
and I had a same mentor in common, so we knew each other a little bit before.
Okay, right. Well, I mean, that's a great segue, Courtney. And by the way, I just want to mention it's great to see some names coming in on the live chat, and if people want to post questions, we'll do our best to multitask and address your questions. But Courtney, tell us about how you got involved in you know quote unquote Filmstack, and a little bit about the 50 Nandi project, which I know was aspirational when you started out. I don't know how many films you have now, but anyway, you can tell us all about it.
Yeah, yeah. My dad liked to say about me that, like, I stand on the outside of a room and I assess it before I enter it, and then when I enter it, like, I enter it as if I was maybe always there or something. So that's kind of how I worked with Filmstack. Like, I subscribed to Ted and I subscribed to other people, and I, like, saw what was happening for a few months, and I really had to, like, consider how I fit into it. I wasn't sure how I fit into it, which I imagine a lot of people, like, even Filmmaker Mag, like,
Yeah.
obviously you guys have a brand, an established voice, your principles, your ideas about the world. But when you enter a new platform or a new space, a group, whatever, you're kind of like, where do I fit? And so I kind of assessed it for a while, and I was like, I don't know, because I am a working class, middle class filmmaker, and I am not part of the system because of both limitations in my life, material limitations, and also choices. The privilege of choice that certain choices I can make. And so I didn't really know. I was like, what do I have to offer? I don't really know. That other people wouldn't offer better. And then what happened was I was feeling so much kinship with what I was reading, especially Ted was talking about stuff where I was like, wait, that's how I feel too. Like, I feel that way. And like, he has more of a depth of history and kind of perspective than I have. We have different experiences. And if he's seeing it and I'm seeing it, and I feel like we kind of operate in different circles and groups, then there's a pattern here. So what I did, I moved from outside of my metaphorical, wallflower status, and I just started saying some things that I also believed. And other people were like, yes. And have you thought about this? And it was just an organic kind of growth. And then at one point, I think Ted probably came across something that I had written and then asked me to do a Hope for Film takeover. And I got to do that. And then, and then we started working on Filmstack Daily Digest together, and things this is the interesting thing about Filmstack at this moment, is like things just kind of compound rather quickly. Like a lot of people that are on the call on the Substack Live, and people that I've spoken with, like, we go from comments to DMs to emails to Zooms, like, pretty fast. Like, I don't know that it'll always be like that. As the platform gets bigger and more expansive, things will change. But around the time, to get to the second part of your question, around the time of October or so last year, all of this was kind of coalescing. I felt like I was in conversation with people. I kind of like felt like I had the read of the room, and I'm always like a little a little too political for my own good. Like, I'm always like, what are the politics of any given situation? And I was reading a lot of I still do. I read a lot of political commentary, opinion, thought pieces. And I was noticing that a lot of the things that I was reading in politics were completely applicable to non-dependence and the non-dependent film movement. Groups of people working together, sharing data, going to give stump speeches together, like cross-endorsing people who have the belief in the same platform. So I thought, how could that be organized into an actual, like, how could we organize the idea of non-dependence into an exercise, like a group exercise? And that was the 90/50 Films Project. So the 90/50 Films Project, very quickly, briefly, is literally just, I wrote a post that said, what if we could organize 50 filmmakers this year? I said, if we get 8, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say 50. Let's just go for it. 50 filmmakers this year who all commit to making non-dependent films. So in this vein of non-dependence, of direct to audience, what if we do this? We share our data. First of all, we collect our data strategically. We share our data. We share institutional resources. We work together to run collaborative marketing experiments, and we scale the community, because one film alone cannot break through. Like, it just cannot, unless you win the lottery, which, I was taught to not play the lottery because it's a scam. So anyway, getting to the point very quickly. The idea is that we're all working on our film simultaneously, in parallel, collaborating where it makes sense, helping each other. And at this point, we have over 120 filmmakers who are committed to doing that. So all that to say, like, all of that had been done. All that groundwork was there. The 90/50 Films Project is one project of many different things that are happening. The circuit, the alternate distribution, venue list, like, people are doing different projects like these all the time to kind of capture the energy of this movement and translate it into infrastructure. So that's what the 50 Films Project is.
And I think it represents really clearly that question that people have, like, what is Nandi? What is Nandi?
Yes.
Nandi is a permissionless, holistic, responsible, personal, responsible community action. Period. Like, that's what I see it is. Like, do whatever the hell you want to do. Recognize the system you're in. Recognize how much the system is in you. Build for each other, right? Take responsibility for your work, your voice, your action, right? And look at the whole piece of it, right? Now,
Yeah.
because of that, the way we're currently built in a system, it also, for most people, will require micro budget action, right? But
Right.
that also gives you so much freedom, right? And it's a lot like where we were in the early 90s when the American indie scene, first launched. You
Well,
can
Ted,
control.
to that point,
Yeah.
can I prompt you? Because something you told me, so Ted and I have talked about the 90s at some length because I'm working on a project about this separately. And so not to scoop, stuff that I'm hoping to write about down the line, but you told me such a funny story about working on this horror movie. And basically, it was like a micro budget horror movie. And at the end, it kind of came out okay. And your line, as I recall, was like, if we can make a shitty movie this way, why can't we make a good one? Right? Like,
Exactly. I had the good fortune of maybe being a bit of a drunk early in my life. And one day at 7 a.m. on the back of the grip truck driver and I were sharing some Jack Daniels. And he told me that he had a friend who was an incredible writer. And that writer was Hal Hartley. And Hal Hartley and I started collaborating. And, after 3 years, he got a little frustrated on my producing ability, which was not getting any movies made. Um, and, basically, responded to what I myself and his cousin Bob Goss, another filmmaker, were learning working on these shitty movies. And he's like, "You guys are telling me you can make movies for $50,000. Well, I just wrote a script for my backyard that I grew up in. I know where the light is at every time of day. You know, um, I want to shoot this movie in 10 days for $50,000." And I was like, "Well, can I have a little?" He said, "No, I just came from Citibank and I got a $15,000 loan for a home computer." We don't have those anymore, but basically, like 3 of those loans, we had the budget of our film. You know, that there are Hal Hartleys out there right now
yeah.
that haven't been able to move forward, but like, let's be totally real. Like, do we need another verification than we got the last week of May that our industry, for the most part, it has, is being smug about how far their head is up their ass, right? Like hello, wake up call. Like, these people that you've been ignoring, and thank you A24, thank you Focus Films, and thank you Markiplier and YouTube and all of that, that these folks had something to say that hit a vein that was being neglected. And I've got news for you. That's not the only vein that we've been neglecting, right?
Hmm.
We built an industry that is for mainstream audiences. It's for liking what your friend liked. But there are tons of communities out there that are desperate to be recognized, that they've been seen and heard, and they want a regular cadence of supply. We can do that. We can use movies to bring people together to create communities. Like, there's tremendous utility in an art form and a technology that makes strangers reveal their shared emotional responses. I was by far the oldest person in the back room's audience, but I don't think I've been in a theater where as soon as the lights went on and everyone stood up, I heard everyone saying the same thing. That was fucking great. That was
Yeah.
fucking great.
Yeah.
Right?
I I actually have a question for you on this finding the next Hal Hartley idea, just because I think I don't know, it's interesting hearing you both talk about Substack as a place where it's a platform that really functions as both a publishing platform and a social media platform where you can just kind of connect and engage with people. And a lot of the work that it sounds like you're doing is about making sure that people are connected and able to kind of skill share and talk to each other and like form a collective infrastructure together. I know we also like talked about this. Ted, you've compared sort of you've thought back to like the 80s sort of punk club circuit and trying to figure out like how can we build sort of an equivalent circuit for the distribution of independent film. So I guess like I'm curious, as the internet becomes more algorithmically driven, self-enclosed, like how do you think the Nextel hardly takes the next step via maybe a platform like Filmstack to reach an
Well,
audience?
the more we get to collaborate, Chloe, I think you'll see that I frequently hold two conflicting ideas in my head at the same time, and I believe in my heart and soul, in them. So cinema will never die. It's the greatest art form, and we can't be stuck rigidly to quote what we call cinema, right? Every platform wants to generate its own art form, right? And we haven't seen that in what is called a newsletter platform, co- partially because that's not what it is, right? It is a media rich community platform. It has social media attached to it, but you can deliver all different forms of media and communication. And so when I start thinking about like I love novelty. I love, viewer confusion. Like, what is this thing I'm watching and where is it going and why is it doing it? Like, I like that puzzle. It's always pulled me in, to movies, but I look forward to a new breed of storyteller that uses short form, uses text, uses audio, uses features, right? And for whatever people refer to as the creator economy or ecosystem, right? I think that that's also really evolving fast, right? I love that, really backrooms could start as kind of a community meme, and somebody could suss out like where their point of entry was and to deliver, you know, a film that is the child of David Lynch, right? Like that. And I can't frankly say much higher than that, right? Like I wish we had more artists who were informed by it, even if they previs their entire movie, ahead of time. Because I also believe in the happy accident and not actually structuring everything. So I think like where that person comes from and what that is, they're already here. They've already arrived. And we just don't do we don't have the right way to source things because we source for an economic model that is, rapidly changing. Courtney said something to me that I really love. And I think is so important. And that is like, yeah, I need the right to make some bad films, right? I need the right to fail. How am I gonna learn? How am I gonna learn if I don't get out there and make some shit, right?
Yeah.
And you some people get that opportunity young. Some people find a community that supports it. It's really hard to be creative and have a support structure, right? And that is what I really, let's be clear. The cinema ecosystem has been cruel and selfish, narcissistic, egotistical, not community based, right? And what I see in Substack and Filmstack right now is something really different,
Yeah.
right? Where it is welcoming. Filmstack is an invite to a community for all, right? And that we need because we need to work this stuff out, right? When we started Good Machine, I'll take credit for it, but it might have been James, or it might have been Anthony Bregman, or Mary Jane Skalski, or somebody along the way, Peter Kujawski, Glenn Vassar. Somebody said, production as development, right? And like we now have, the tools have improved, but enshittification ensues everywhere, right? So with these tools, how do we actually start to develop new storytelling, new aesthetics, new modes of collaboration, and the recognition that we have new platforms to release it out, that type of engagement, right? And that thankfully, for once, actually kind of adhered to an idea that artists have rights, right? Like
Yeah.
everything has been about value extraction as opposed to empowering the artists and their audiences into an ownership position, right?
Well, and actually, Courtney, can you, because your sort of initial non-D50 posts, you started by talking about politics and talking about feeling
Yeah.
left out of this world, right? Or being not welcome in this world. And we've got some folks in the comment talking about gatekeepers, and is the idea of Nandi to smash the gatekeepers or go around them or what? But but tell us about how that sort of political impulse, inspired the Nandi 50 project from your perspective.
Well, I just I don't know, like, my mom was the president of the teachers union, my dad was a
Mm.
union, they were both public school teachers, like, so for me, I'm always, looking at things through that lens, and, I can't ignore the material realities of my life because when I realized that, like, I was gonna transition from acting to writing, that had one material consequence. When I realized that my stuff wasn't gonna get produced because it was taking forever to produce it, and I had to take matters into my own hand, and I was breastfeeding my child, all of that material, and I was living in New York City, and I couldn't afford to take a job that didn't pay enough for me to take care of my responsibilities. All that material reality impacts the choices that I can make as a filmmaker, and people have a wide swath of these material realities that I think, from my perspective, people can disagree, we we romanticize out of the filmmaker life. We romanticize the material truth of what it means to be human out of the idea of making movies because movies are romantic. Like Jake Weissman always says, like, bring back the fun and romance. Like, yes, movies are romantic and material reality often isn't. Okay, fine. So how do we square that? How do we square that? And for me, with the Nandi 50 Films project, I thought, like, I am sick of romanticizing the fact that or the idea rather that if I just post consistently, someone will discover my film. Like, I don't believe that. I don't. I don't believe that. Not because I don't think my work has value or my colleagues, my friends' work has value, but because I believe the system is not built to support that fantasy. I believe the system is built to support the fantasy that the insiders keep insiding. Like they can keep the algorithm will work for them. The algorithm will not work for me alone. However, what I you asked, like, where do we discover the next Hal Hartley? My answer to that would be that she or he or them um, will be picked they will be picked by the community, will be picked by the audience. However, it's not gonna look like when Hollywood picks you. It's gonna look like consistency. It's gonna look like you can get the first film funded and then you get the next film funded because you can't do it without community because if you aren't on the inside and you don't have access to, sources of wealth and grants and all of this, then, like, you only have community to get it done, right? So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to say that I think that the future is community. I think the future is collective action. I think the myth of the myth of the movie star is like out the window and we're operating in a new place. And, like, in some ways that makes me sad because I grew up, like, thinking movie stars were incredible. I wanted to be a movie star. There was a fantasy, there was a romance, but, like, the reality is we're at a new point, and if we want to make the movies that we wanna make and connect with people in the way that we wanna connect, we have to understand the rules of the game, understand what the system is solving for, and then make an active choice to solve for something else. And I think that's through community.
I have to say, like, it's so funny, Courtney and I realized that both my parents too were public school uh, professors, community college, and they were union leaders,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, wow.
Humble backgrounds, but, like, inspired along the way. And something that Courtney hit that I think is just so important and shocked me with, like, when I was trying to write out non-D principles, I left out, right? It was through the engagement of the community that I realized, oh, the 25th uh, step, which is really, like, right from the start, is to prioritize joy. Like, I have to say, like, I
Yeah.
was in a room full of quote, "successful film people" yesterday, and if there was, like, a meter to register a certain level of self-loathing that people have, it's shocking. It is shocking,
Yeah.
like, we have so ruined the spirit, right? This is a celebration that's there, and I keep feeling this, and I was trying to diagnose it in myself, and it's like, no, like, I wanted to make movies because 'cause they're what I love, they're so cool. I was so happy to see Backrooms and a crowd that totally dug it and was coming out, and I see, like, tons of pretentious art films because that's my flavor, but, that we forgot that like, what is we look at this era and often define it as the humans against the machines. What's gonna happen, right? The biggest human thing is it's either to sing or to dance, and no one does it now unless they rehearse and not willing to look like fools, but once upon a time, that was what the community did, got together and acted like fools. So it's also the willingness to slip on that banana peel, right? The willingness to make mistakes and see, the romance in that, right? That it is our flaws. Like my mom would say, like when she stopped watching my movies at a certain point because there were too many, but that she really loved Manchester by the Sea,
Oh,
and said, it captures that thing where it's actually we don't get over anything. It
Mm.
is the scars that make the character, right? Those markings that we should wear with pride. It's our scars. And that's the human quality. And how do we bring that up in this coming era? We want to see that. What was one of the things I loved on Backrooms? What was the actors' ability to show their full vulnerability across the board? Those three actors have that special skill in showing that, and you can read it in them. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be in a place where I don't know what is gonna happen next. I don't understand the rules. I don't understand the rules. Like I'm like that's who we are and where we kind of rise to the occasion, which is often just like be yourself. So that would also be like Nandi is also that directive to really be satisfied with who we are, warts and all, flaws and all, mistakes and all, and to celebrate that too.
Right.
You could also call that humanist filmmaking.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like the question of what is the human element is kind of the defining one of this moment, certainly. But I'm hearing it in both of your responses. But yeah, I mean, I liked what you were saying earlier, Courtney, about like change, sort of just being something that's, inevitable and all we really have are each other. Hearing Ted talk a bit about Backrooms, I'm wondering if there are any specific films or artists or maybe even like ways of working that feel like they inspire you toward the future of the next phase of whatever this is.
Oh, well, a lot of I personally, as an artist, I've had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned in like my 20s and my early 30s. It's crazy because I'm only 22 now. I don't know how that works. Um,
I'm 800.
yeah, time doesn't exist. Anyway, yeah, so I'm like watching a lot of stuff from the 90s, a lot of stuff from the 70s, a lot of stuff from the 30s. Like I'm looking back at points before everything got like codified and like organized. I'm trying to look for messy things because I think like the thing about okay, I don't know if this is answering your question, but I'm just gonna go here and then, like, pull me back or tell me to stop. I
We're encouraging you. Go for it.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
please.
I apologize in advance.
No.
I think like, this idea of cringe, and, like, we're talking about humanist movies, and it's very feel good. I actually think, like, the cringiest thing is insincerity. Like, I'm so bothered by insincerity because I feel like I have to get it off me. It just makes me uncomfortable. I'm like, why are you being insincere? And I think a lot of our like media ecology right now, like the way that we present ourselves online falls into this trap of insincerity because again, we're playing towards I've got to be consistent. I've got to please the algorithm. I've got to make films and I've got to make art and content that performs well. And what I think actually in my own kind of like self-study as an artist, what I think I look at in the history of things that I like, things that, you know, people put on the Criterion channel so other people like it to a degree, like are like messy, like kind of what Ted said, like contradictory, messy, not easily codified things. And so I think that there is a great amount of power, cultural power in being yourself, in um not making every single thing you do be the only thing you do. Like do multiple things. Now I'm just yelling. But like do multiple things, like contradict yourself. Like confuse people. It's fine. They'll
And
figure
and
it out. Yeah.
and don't be good at all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't pretend to be good. Like, I just screened a series that I did in 2023, and it was, like, the longest thing that I had done, and I just watched it. I was like, "Wow, God, jeez, I wish I had made different choices." But you know what? I was like, "I see what she's going for. I see what that woman is going for, and that's alright. That's where she was. I would make a different one now." So, anyway, all that to say that, like, I am inspired by people who I'm really inspired by people who can like uh kind of thread the needle of being like themselves and also not forget about the audience. Like this is kind of the creator economy conversation, right? I think that the future of non-dependent filmmakers, which at some point we will just call filmmakers, but I think that the future of non-dependent no, Ted disagrees. Why? Why do you disagree?
They're all antiquated. Like we carry too much baggage. Like Filmmaker is going to change its name, Filmmaker Magazine, because it's formerly known as the film business. It's not even film,
FJA
right?
filmmaker.
I see.
And we're not making a single product, right? We're not filmmaker. Like it's kind of like people tease me, rightly so, for my constant pursuit of new nomenclature and vernacular of different things, and like I'm looking for those things, right? I make some bad choices along the way, but like I currently like Cinemaker. Not with mama, not with a mama in between.
Cinema maker.
Just one
Cinemaker.
ma.
Cinemaker.
Yeah, right.
Cinemaker. Like cinnamon.
Cinemaker.
Yes.
Cinnamon
Uh,
maker. Yeah, I don't know. I
we're
I
we're
I
gonna
don't know.
trademark that after this call.
Cine.
Ted.
Cinemaker.
Yeah.
Cinemaker.
Cinemaker.
Needs a long E over the
We
line.
need some more accents. As
But
many accents as possible.
But like it's curious, like Scott McCauley did call out a lot of things with the name along the way. But actually wasn't. I just embraced the long E over in Nandi. But what I like about it is like, and we moved everything for about 10 to 15 years to a question of stack ranking, optimization, all, immediate gratification, efficiency, right? You like when my son, is now 25, started recognizing what creative acts were, we were watching Doctor Who and he was like, "Oh, I cracked the code." he looked at narrative, the gun in the drawer in the first act, as a code. And, so he hated the children's version of Doctor Who, and he wanted the more sophisticated because it was harder to crack the code. We did that with all of our cultural products for so long. The poptimization of everything, which, flattened things, right? Like, I personally believe that, great cinema doesn't have a A plot and a B plot. It needs a second alphabet, right? To map that out,
Mhm.
because these things don't have to get paid off. They're there for you. They have the secret languages that movies speak that tell you this was made for you and you alone, right? I see myself in cinema from all over the world, and a lot of that stuff isn't paying off. It is not set up. Some of it is the happy accidents that filmmakers won't even recognize is there, but it's why it speaks to me, right? And we got so formulaic in everything we do, including our careers, right? One of
Yeah.
the great things that I just learned, right? You can teach a 62-year-old man many new tricks. One of the things I just learned, by slowing down the distribution of my wife's film, Invisible Nation,
Yeah.
you know, what, Peter Broderick and Keith Aquat kind of pitched as dynamic distribution, right, really worked because we saw opportunities that you couldn't plan for, right, that we could chase and lean into, and they became exactly what we wanted, right? Like, we couldn't everybody was naysaying to us about what we were doing, what the film would do. I couldn't have asked them for a better experience and success. We just finished almost a 3-year run, and we finished it by playing in US Congress, right? Like, it was perfect, and the people that needed to show up, at least the Democratic side of the aisle, for what is often a Republican issue, showed up and, championed the work. But, like, we didn't design it for that. That wasn't, like, where we were going. We thought it was an impossibility. We've been told time and time again, like, "Don't dream of utopia. Don't dream of the good things." Fuck that. Like, start to see what you really want. You do not have to be in the system. It's like people say, like, the gatekeepers have stopped me. It's not theirs. They don't actually exist. They're delusional, right? Like, let's move away from that. Right?
Well, and,
We have a much better system where we block the merger, own letterbox, don't need gatekeepers,
yeah.
all get to express ourselves in so many different ways.
Well, one of the things I wanted, first of all, I have a few thoughts on what you guys have said. Courtney, when you talk about what Nandi, how it works, or what you're trying to build with Filmstack, it really sounds like a scene at the end of the day, right? I mean, it's a scene.
Yeah.
And in the old days, the scene was a bunch of people who all lived in the same place, but they had the power by getting a critical mass of people with taste together, making stuff together for one another. They had the power to kind of bend the industry toward them. The industry would finally say, there's something happening here. Like, we need to, whatever, exploit it usually.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, that's how the culture gets elevated. And one of the interesting, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle, I would say, between Anthony Kaufman and I think it was Emily Best over this question of Anthony was basically saying, who's a filmmaker, longtime contributor, columnist, saying, hey,
Oh,
don't
my
spend too
book.
much time distributing your film because it might be bad and maybe you just need to make the next film, which is an interesting question, I thought. And Ted, this whole kind of talk about distribution, new distribution models, it makes me think of what you told me, one of our earlier conversations about the 80s. Chloe mentioned this earlier, the 80s sort of DIY punk hardcore circuit around the country, where if you were a band, if you were Husker Du or the Minutemen, like, you go around the country and play each of those clubs, and then you're done. Like, that's it. You just toured your record. You might have had 4 people at half of those shows. You might have sold 25 copies of your LP, but, like, you did the tour. Do you think that is there something brewing, or is there a possibility of a network like that in the country, or does it already exist that I don't see it? Like it feels like that's one of the things that's bubbling up here now.
Well, I'll just jump in. I mean,
Yeah, please.
I mean,
It's
so
Ted is eating, so
yeah, he's got his wasabi peas going on. I just have bland old seltzer water.
yeah.
So, they look great.
Wow.
Well, Jake Weissman and Taylor Lewis are working on something called The Circuit that is just that, connecting filmmakers to the places where they can run their films. There's Art House Convergence, which does the popcorn list,
Oh
which
yeah.
you all know about. There's Michael Levine put together the non-D alternative venue list, which isn't theaters, but institutions, libraries, museums, other art centers that screen things have money.
Is that Michael Levine, the photographer?
Indeed, the very
No
same.
kidding. Talk
Yeah.
about people who were on the scene in the
Yeah.
80s and
Yes.
90s. Wow,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yes. And he's making some incredible films. I watched his stop motion film. Like, he has a stop motion film. Like, he's in these oh, Taylor says it's theaters too. Okay, it's
Okay.
theaters too. But there are over 200 places, right? So, there and these are just the things I know about, and I am aware that I am, ignorant of many, many things. I think that there's infrastructure like this that people are working on all the time. And I think what is interesting about Filmstack is that we get to say, like, oh, I'm working on this corner. Oh, you're working on this corner. Okay, like, let's put them together. And people want this, and audiences want this. Like, when I do like a little bit of market research from time to time, because I have a day job, because I'm a marketing strategist as my day job, because I think everyone should have a day job. And I think if you're a filmmaker with a day job, like, rock on, that's hardcore, that's cool. Never feel bad about that. That's my PSA. Um, um, so I do market research and I talk to people, and people are like, I want to find these films. I want to find these, like, art house films. I want to find these weird things. Like, I don't know what to go watch. I won't stream because, like, I don't want to scroll. I just want someone to curate and tell me. So there's a hunger for that from audiences. There's a hunger from that from filmmakers. And, like, the future is, can we just meet? Can we just access each other? Can audiences have an easier time accessing films? Can filmmakers have an easier time meeting audiences where they are? I don't think that was the answer to your question either. But
Well, I would add to that, right? And beyond meeting, it points out why indie film was such a failure, right? Why it spent 40 years doing the wrong thing. And a lot of it is that we didn't actually build institutional knowledge. We did demystify the production process and budgeting, right? Maybe a little bit of the festival circuit and a little bit of sales, right? But we actually didn't build things better to be independent, right? It ingrained a master slave, dominant, submissive, top bottom, relationship into creators' mindset, right? That we have to free ourselves from. And it's really a simple practice, what Courtney is saying here. It is recognizing the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Brownies. We have to leave things better than we found them. Pick up the trash that you didn't bring in that's already in the campground when you leave. It's that
Yeah.
simple. Try to start to codify some of these recommended best practices. They may not be for you, but they might stimulate things for us. Like, we've been trying to start to build resources, right? How long have we been in this, Mike, right? 40 years. And how come it took Courtney Daniels and me building a massive master list of the 83 case studies we could find, right? We have to make this easier for all of us. Instead, people have held on to their own knowledge as a means of power, right? I've learned one thing. Anybody that chases power should not be trusted. Period.
But
Right?
that's a great segue to a question I want to ask you, Ted, which is, how much did your time at Amazon inspire this chapter of your life? With things that you saw there, how does that, affect how you see things now?
I I'm a big believer in therapy, right? I'm always going back, and I would say, like, I am Billy Pilgrim to, Kurt Vonnegut in that I became unstuck in time so long ago. So I'm constantly reliving my 15-year-old self, my good machine self, my 30, my 40, some traumatic moments in there. I get stuck in that replay, of those songs. Um, but, Ann Carey, business partner, longtime friend and collaborator who I met day one of film school, said to me at some certain point, "Ted, you've always needed something to fight against." Right? And I was thinking about this morning as I woke up. Like I can't help, like want to destroy the status quo. It is just so ingrained in me and has been like, I think it was with Jake on Jake Weissman, where I revealed that in 4th grade, the school called my mom in because they thought I was organizing a student strike, in 4th grade. Like, excuse me, you're a little paranoid there. But, that that time at Amazon, I do believe like, I'm not moving out of the country, even though I'm really angry with it. Like, you stay in the center and you try to fight for your community, for your people, for yourself, your loved ones, and try to improve things for everybody. I certainly have contemplated it. It's very compelling. Like, other countries actually care about making movies for grown-ups and help them with tax policy, investment strategy, but we don't here in America. And that's what I most would like to do. But I'm an old guy and I've lived a good life. And my time at Amazon did one thing for me for sure, which actually gave me a retirement account, which I never had before. So may you all find a corporate studio platform to hire you when you're 55 years old so you can actually out of retirement at some point and help build things. But it was particularly in my first administration, I went through 3, a really healthy attitude where they encouraged disagreement on things, and people actually had the courage to speak their mind, including your assistants. Like, I love that an assistant could question, like, people talk about this as a complaint. "Oh, those millennials, they don't wanna get an email after 5 p.m." Well, maybe we shouldn't get an email after 5 p.m., right? Like, maybe we'd actually be able to prioritize joy a little bit more if you felt a little bit guilty about sending me an email on the weekend about how I titled my document, to you, right? Like, it doesn't need to be addressed right then. So it definitely informed, but, like, it was more the fact, and I've written extensively about this, that streaming coulda gone in a different direction, right? It really could've. Like, I n understand, the goals of audience acquisition. That's what our business became, and how that is engineered, and how you want everyone to watch the same thing. But there's an alternative to that it could be I don't think it's gonna be unwound anytime soon now. I think now we're stuck with the system we have. But we have a new disruptive, I think bigger than streaming thing happening right now, right? And we can choose how we want it to be, what it could actually become, right? And, this is where I get to plug my talk on Friday. I hope you can come to Tribeca at 130 Spring Street Studios, 50 Barrack. If you have Tribeca Festival accreditation, you can just get in free, and I want to talk precisely about some of these opportunities because, like, when you get down it, it's precisely what Courtney and the Filmstack community is building. It is precisely Nandi. It's precisely what Elizabeth Joyce is doing with Letterbox. It is precisely what Jax DeLuca and John Reese and others are doing with Future Film Coalition that really starts to show things are gonna change. They're going to change rapidly, and there are steps we all can take to prepare for it, but it's gonna be better for everybody. We can return a predictive business model to ambitiously authored film, that allows more work to be generated and working class, middle class people to earn a living doing the things that they love. That is really possible and in front of us right now in a way it never has been before. Makes my eyes water.
It's not the wasabi piece?
But it always helps. You got to stay emotional somehow, and I found those were the things that triggered it for me.
Yeah.
I like that the conversation continues out of the bounds of this Substack Live as well. And I also want to acknowledge some of the folks who are sending questions through in the chat. We actually have one question that says, "What does success look like? How would we know that the collective is successful?" So as we head toward the end of our time, I'm curious for both of your parting thoughts.
I've been thinking like I think the fact that VJ put that question there is also really important, because I do think the wrong definition of success got lodged in all of us. That's the system in us, and we do have to do the work individually and collectively to recognize what that definition of success is now. And I do feel it very much is what I said before. Did I leave this better than I found it? Right? With my movie, with this Zoom, with my interactions with other people, like that's what I'm trying to deliver. And that's what I try to deliver in my posts and my writing. That's where I evaluate it. I started a post 3 years ago on the new green light mechanism, which is like for us as individuals, right? And I do think that in like making a movie, you also want to improve the system, right? You want to be building your team for future work. I want to make sure that my audiences feel more joined as a community, and that they got something in return for their engagement from the movie beyond killing 90 minutes or being entertained. That somehow cinema was a transformable experience for them. That transformative. Thank you. That's what we want. And to me, that's what success really is. That I love when like we had on Invisible Nation, people come up to us and say, I didn't want to see this movie. I never thought I wanted to see a movie like this. I certainly didn't think I need it. And now I can't believe that I ever lived without it. Right. And I want that high level of transformative experience to occur with all my actions. I did get called into HR at Amazon. Amazon had a leadership principle called raise the bar. And I did have several complaints that I was raising the bar too high. But that's what I want in every single interaction. Like, I want our lives to get better. And I think we can do it.
Courtney, you want to have the last word here before we sign off at the end of our hour?
Yeah. I mean, +1 to everything that Ted said. I also got called into HR at Amazon Studios. It was a painful day. I'm just kidding. No, but everything that he said, I would say that for success in my eyes is longevity. Can I last if I want to? Can I stick around and make the next one? As we talked about earlier, can I take a big swing and whiff and come back and try again? Because that is I think the most human thing that you can do is show up and put everything into it and have yourself fall on your face and say, but let me try again. But let me just do it one more time.
Yeah.
And if there's a material way, again, to come back to that like reality that we all live in, we have to pay for things. Bills must be paid, children must be fed, parents must be taken care of. And these are important things, not just as artists, but as humans. And if we can get to a place collectively where it's not just one person becoming the next Hal Hartley, but there are 50 or 120 or 2,000 of them, I just think that's a funner place to be for all of us, for audiences, for Filmmaker, where game recognizes game. We do raise the bar for each other, and we try to compete in a positive, collaborative way with ourselves to be better. And so I do think the material has to be part of that. But the material is not the end game. It is the levers we pull to stay in the game.
Yes, go ahead.
I just like on that again, like the capturing of institutional knowledge and the failure that independent film had to do that. I think a lot of it is also we neglected to set a core principle for independent film that grew up in the 90s. And Courtney said it right there. It's sustainability of us, the art, the artist, the audience, and the ecosystem. We need to give care, right? We need to give care to this collective enterprise, right? And like, it's not about being on top. It's about lending a hand, right? And that's really key. And, I think, in the referencing to Hal Hartley, I do want to point out that he won't say this, but he's a true non-D filmmaker, right? He's
Yeah.
distributing his movies. He's preserving his movies. He refuses there to be gatekeepers. And he, like Edward Burns, who I also got to work with along the way, um, he's one too. He will also be distributing movies of his own making, and as much as he makes one for them, he always makes one for himself, which is micro budgeted and designed for everyone, to benefit from it. And it's no accident that both these guys, you know, came from working class backgrounds, came from the fact that they could feel the gatekeepers and the barriers. Now they were helped. They were also in the privileged class of being white cis males along the way, but they had the goods to deliver, right, along the way to their audiences. Like that, it's not an accident when you look at Filmstack and the leaders are mostly female, right? Like that oppression that has been systemic for everybody also raises the fight and said, it's delusional. We don't have to accept it this way. Like we can build something different, right? We all learn from that pushback, that barrier that we faced. And I think there's so much more to come because it's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We can't trust our leaders.
Yeah, well, it's a very exciting moment. I just keep kind of feeling this and saying this. It feels like there's something big happening, and you guys are at the center of it. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today. Chloe and I are both excited to be on this Substack Filmstack journey with you. And appreciate your support and guidance. Thank you to everybody who tuned in for this chat. And we will talk to you guys soon and see you,
And,
Ted, in Tribeca, hopefully on Friday.
and thank you for making this happen too. Like
Yes, thank you
here's to
so much.
more of it.
Great. Yes. And if anyone has not signed up for Hope for Film for Let Go Again or for Filmmaker, please do subscribe. And
Or Filmstack Daily Digest or Filmstack Deep Dive.
there you go. We're
WatchTheMerger.com
plugging. Yeah, everyone get to work.
and
Okay. All
contribute
right.
to the
Thank you
Seed
so
and
much.
Spark campaign to buy letterbox for the community. We have to get $100,000 to be able to compete to hire the lawyers to take it to that next step. So we're already a third of the way there. We haven't hit the halfway point. $20 makes a huge difference in that. So whatever anyone can give on that next step is really key.
That's awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you
Thank you
soon.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.